AS 3533.4.1 Section 9 Containment. This is split into different sections. The first section would be where the platform height is no greater is of greater than 700 millimeters, i.e. it's not a step or a ramp, but it is less than 3 meters. So your average bouncy castle, even ones with small slides on, are going to be within that range. It says you need to contain people, which is obvious. The containment will be provided by either a wall of a height of at least equal to the height of the users for which it is designed when standing, up to 1.8 meters. Now consider this. That means every bouncy castle should have a maximum height put on it, especially if it's a toddler one. And you will see this. You've got some Toddler Town series bouncy castles. They're designed for little kids. The walls are very low down because the idea is parents can sort of see over and into them, and the walls are low down, but designed to be at least the height of a child that would go inside. And I would probably argue slightly taller than the children, because you need to be able to stop them gripping onto the top and getting over. But they're at least equal to the height of the person. But other than that, 1.8 meter walls all around. Imagine a slide coming down. Big slide. Comes down, and then you've got a section at the end where patrons, come to a stop and they get off. Now, if that slide is big, like our caution slide is, for example, it'll easily take adults. Adults are fine to go on it. We let adults on it. It goes out all the time with adults on it. So when they come down, that end section should be contained with at least 1.8 meter high walls. That's a lot, and I'm not sure that it's necessary. Not really. The other way of containing people, of course, instead of just having the walls really tall, is to have a roof on it. And that would be the case, say, at the top of the slides. This is talking about low down, but you can imagine lower sections. Instead of having really tall walls, you just have it roofed over so you can't get over anyway. And that would achieve the same end. For inflatable devices which are greater than 3 meters, containment walls need to be at least 1.25 times the height of the patrons for which it's designed. So you could imagine sort of having this thing where I go, I'm sorry, you're just too tall to use this. Fine. Or again, a roof. And that would be the case with the slides, because you don't really want to be making a 1.8 meter tall wall on the top of a slide. And to tell you the truth, I wouldn't trust it anyway, because kids could climb on each other to get up and over. And if you're up over 3 meters, 6 meters up, one kid decides to shin up and get over the top, that's not going to end well. So I would always choose a roof to go on the top of something along those lines. There's some requirements for the height of a roof to contain people for high up bits, a technical classification for it, basically saying that it depends on the square area. So you could have a very low down roof if you're just getting up there and crawling through and down. But if it's got any sort of playing area or whatever, you've got to have a taller roof to allow people to actually move around. And that's kind of just understandable. It also talks about devices having walls which do not fall outwards. I'm trying to think of an inflatable that would have one just by the nature of them, but it's worth specifying. It talks about slides, I guess, because it talks about inflatables with platform heights over 2 meters. And it says on unintended collapse, i.e. if the blower fails, I'm guessing that's the sort of thing, the containment walls should naturally fall inwards to contain someone. And again, this is what you'll see. if the blower fails, if you just turn the blower off, things will tend to crumple in and down. The manufacturers that we've ever bought anything from do a very good job of making sure that these things fail safe. The danger, of course, is that the slide is overloaded. And if you're overloaded beyond the manufacturer's specification, then especially if you're overloaded to one side, it could all go over to one side, and that's where injuries occur. It talks about sloping platforms, which is basically slides. They're not to go beyond 45 degrees unless measures are in place to prevent uncontrolled descent. So you've got some slides which have that sort of vertical bit going down. I don't know what you're meant to put in to prevent people sliding down. Don't know quite what that's meant to be. Inflatable devices which have up to 38 degrees should be treated as level for the purposes of wall heights. Above 38, there's a different containment criteria. Where slides of the inflatable can cause a patron, I like that phrase, user to be projected unaided. So basically, if you've got a slide, someone could come down it towards an edge. There'll be enough clear run so somebody comes to a stop before going off that edge. Now, it doesn't specify whether that edge has a containment wall, so somebody must not hit the containment wall at the end. Or more likely, I'm guessing, if it's an open edge, imagine a slide coming down and just going down onto the grass or whatever, they should stop before they fly off and down. I've seen some inflatables where the slide just comes down, and off. And you just go, yeah, people have just been dumped down onto the grass or onto the matting below. That shouldn't happen. But it's unclear what happens with slides that just terminate. If they have a wall at the end, does it matter? It doesn't say. This is all before we had water slides, I'm guessing, where you slide right down and you need something to stop you, otherwise you've got a very, very long slide until you stop naturally. Unclear. Inflatable devices with playing areas up to 700mm. Again, that's just sort of a normal flat bouncy castle. She'll have walls on the non-open sides, at least equal to the heights of the people using it, or at least 900mm, whichever is the greater. It says that if you have a slide coming down and it goes to a play area, then they run out of the slide, the bottom bit where you come to a stop. You shall stop before you get to the play area, and that makes sense. You don't want people sliding down and hitting people who are playing somewhere else, etc. So in that case, it does differentiate between the run-out area of the slide and a play area. They're no longer the same. So a slide has a run-out, which wasn't specified in the early bit, and there's a play area which are separate. However, when it says when a slide has a dedicated run-out area, the containment walls must be at least 900mm for the length of the run-out area. Don't think mine are. For challenge games, what we'd call interactive units, which they class as obstacle courses or the bungee runs and things like that, the operators must ensure that the designers must ensure that the containment walls are high enough to contain people while they're being used for the purpose for which they're designed. I guess this is the idea is people aren't bouncing around on them. They are actually running, travelling in one direction, etc. So the wall height is not so important. Well, where this comes into play, of course, is if you have an obstacle course and you run it as a bouncy castle, in which case kids are falling out the sides. We've been to public events before. All our obstacle courses will always run as obstacle courses, so we'd have somebody on there running the kids through, said 3, 2, 1, go, and making sure they know it's a race. But then you can go to other events, not mention anybody, where it's just, yeah, go on, kids, just go in, and kids go backwards and forwards, etc. And then, of course, people stop and want to bounce on it, in which case it must have containment walls. But often these ones don't have containment walls, and kids are coming in from left, right, and centre. That's where problems begin. There is a helpful diagram of a slide coming down and talking about the wall heights, containment heights. So the first meter of this slide must be equal to the user height. So they specified a 1.8 meter height there, or netted off. There's a roof. Most slides, I think you'll find now, have a netted area, and that also stops kids from running and flying and just falling right down to the ground, which they seem to think is fun, because they think it's a fall, not a slide. I keep telling them it's the clues in the words. It talks about the containment wall height at the top of the slide and at the bottom, and gives some directions onto that. Again, if you want the actual details, then you probably need to buy yourself a copy and follow it. But for most of us, it is just we use what we get. Whether they are totally adherent to this standard or not, I would possibly argue that most slides I see are not, because the bottom area, the containment wall, is not sufficiently tall. However, I would also say it's not usually a problem. It's not the issue with the bouncy castles. People come down and get off. They don't play on the runoff area. They traverse it and just stop, get off, because they want to have another go. If if they came down a slide and then it was a bouncing area, then I think it needs a taller wall, etc. I think I've seen one bouncy castle like that, and it did. It had you came down the slide and then you went into basically a square bouncy castle. Looked a bit strange, but it worked, and people hired it, etc. But I can't imagine many bouncy castles being like that.